raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness with your hosts John McCaskill and Will Schneider. Here we focus on helping men and those with men in their lives solve some of life's complex challenges through understanding the practices of mindfulness and how they can help. Each episode is in an environment free of judgment and criticism, with a focus on authenticity and inner peace. Let's dig in.
Welcome back to another episode of the Men Talking Mindfulness podcast. I'm Will Schneider, and I'm joined by my co-host, John McCaskill. Also joining us today is our very special guest, men's health expert, urologist, and author, Dr. Judson Brandeis. Today, we will dig into an array of men's health topics. But before we go any further, here's a little bit more about Dr. Judson Brandeis. He is not just any doctor. He's been voted the best urologist in the San Francisco Bay Area for a decade. His credentials from Brown University, Vanderbilt Medical School, a urology residency at UCLA, and a research fellowship at Harvard. Dr. Brandeis is a powerhouse in the world of men's health. He's here to discuss his groundbreaking book. John, there it is. Yes, The 21st Century Man. Advice from 50 top doctors and men's health experts so you can feel great, look good, and have better sex.
And who does not want all that, right?
What's that?
And who does not want all that?
Yeah, exactly. So good to have you back, John, or good for us to be back.
Yeah.
We'll bring out Dr. Judson in a second. Yeah.
Yeah. And as you can tell by the, it's just the two of us right now. We're going to bring on Dr. Brandeis here in a second. We're pre-recording this one just due to scheduling conflicts and a couple other things, but we're going to make it work. So, hey, some announcements. Thanks for supporting the show, buying our merch. Like we've already said, we've got the shirts, we've got the hats, mugs, tumblers. It's mentalkingmindfulness.com/shop. So check that out when you get a chance. Another big announcement is, hey, we've got our next in-person mindfulness leadership retreat, and we're calling it the Be Well to Lead Well retreat. And it's going to be taking place May 16th through the 19th out here in Colorado Springs. That's May 16th through the 19th, 2024, obviously. And you can learn more about that retreat at mentalkingmindfulness.com/retreat, or you can text the letters BWELL. That's BWELL, Be Well, to 33777 for more information. And we've got an early bird discount on that right now going on until December 26th. Is that right?
26th, yeah.
I think that's right. And that's $400 off the total cost. So go ahead and book your spot now. We've already sold 9. So we'd love to have you and get in on that while you can, while we've got that early bird retreat. And then lastly, hey, help us to grow the show. Again, like I say always, not just to grow our influence, but to grow the power of mindfulness and meditation. As we get these practices out in front of more people, then more people start to practice, right? So, hey, help us to grow that show through following us on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. Hey, we've got content on there that is separate from the show. We've got little snippets from the show, lots of great content. So join us when you can. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for tuning in and for sharing our podcast. And then I guess we're going to jump into the opening practice here shortly with Dr. Judson Brandeis. So thanks for joining us. All right, here we are with Dr. Brandeis, Dr. Judson Brandeis, coming to us from California, and we're very excited to have you on the show. As we do on every show, we're going to kick the show off with an opening breathing practice or grounding practice. And so if you would, those who are listening live or those who are tuning in via podcast later, get comfortable, whatever that looks like for you. If that includes closing your eyes, then I invite you to do so. Otherwise, just soften your eyelids. And we're just going to keep it to 3 simple breaths this morning, today. And we're going to start by exhaling and noticing the sensation of exhaling, or what that feels like, and holding empty for a second. A nice deep breath in, into your belly first, then into your chest, holding full at the top, and releasing, holding empty at the bottom. Deep breath in, noticing your belly filling up first and then into your chest, holding full at the top, and release. And last one, into your belly, into your chest. Hold and release. Release. And as you release, start to bring some movement back into your body, maybe twiddling your thumbs.
There you go.
Moving your fingers, rolling your shoulders. All right. We try not to twiddle our thumbs too much on the show. Hey, Dr. Brandeis, great to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. We're excited for this show and excited to finally make it happen. This has been a show that's been coming for a while, and we're super excited to talk about your book here, The 21st Century Man, and everything that is in it, and men's health and how that ties to mental health as well. So, hey, I'll start it off for Dr. Brandeis. Can you tell us what inspired you to put this book together, a book that has advice from 50 top doctors and men's health experts so you can feel great, look good, and have better sex? And who does not want that?
Well, what for most men, what goes beyond feeling good, looking good, and having better sex?
Drinking beer, maybe for some guys, right?
Yeah. So that to me, that sums up in a few words what men really care most about.
Yeah.
And the book actually started out. So I'm a urologist, so I take care of men's genitourinary issues. But about 5 years ago, I became really interested in men's health, men's sexual health, and the developments in men's sexual health, testosterone replacement, and regenerative urology. So helping guys who were having difficulty getting erections get erections again so that they could be sexually competent.
Mm-hmm.
And so the book really started out about sex and how to help guys have better sex, but really so many things end up affecting sex that I started accumulating chapters, and I ended up with 101 chapters and over 900 pages. Really, it's a totally comprehensive view of men's health. And, there's 101 chapters, and it's a really, really long book. And I can't stand when I read like a 400-page book, and at the end of 400 pages, I'm like, that could be summarized in about 3 pages. And there's about 397 pages of fluff.
Right.
But I guarantee you, 900 pages, you could not summarize the book in any words less than 900 pages.
Wow.
Each chapter is really like a book unto itself, and it's totally information dense. I write in an active tense, so I write for busy men. Like I wrote the prostate chapter. Like, what do you need to know about the prostate? What are all the insider tips on the prostate? Or, there's a chapter on mindfulness or on yoga or on addictions or you name it. There's every aspect that's critical for men's health. Because the way that I see men's health, especially in middle age and older age, is like that Maslow's pyramid. So when you're in your 20s, things are totally different. By the time you're in your 50s, if you're having a lot of sex, you have to climb the pyramid. And the bottom of the pyramid is physical health, right? So if your physical health is lousy, if you're overweight, if you're drinking too much, if you're smoking too much, if you have bad cardiovascular health, if you have diabetes, so on and so forth, you're not going to be able to physically have sex, right? But if you're physically okay, right, then emotionally, you have to make sure that you're okay. And mentally, you have to make sure you're okay. So if you're depressed, if you're anxious, if you have those kind of issues, you're not going to be able to have physical intimacy. And then relationships, right? If your relationships are a mess, no one's going to want to have sex with you, right? So if you climb all of those aspects of the pyramid, and there's aesthetics, so if you look like crap, or if there's a whole section on addiction. So if you're addicted to a bunch of stuff, things aren't going to work for you. But if you've climbed that entire pyramid, then at the top is sexual health. Right. And then there's several sections on sexual health. So really, that was the genesis of the book. And that's why the book was so long, because there are so many things that affect our ability to become physically intimate in your 50s and 60s. I mean, your 20s, you're chasing everything around.
Right.
That's a whole different ball game. And physiologically, things work in a totally different way.
Well, since we're talking about sexual health, that's actually what originally caught my eye. I forgot whose podcast you were on, but they introduced us. But you mentioned something about how the sexual health tells us so much more about our overall health. And if I remember correctly, you said something about, erectile dysfunction, what that tells us about our heart health. And if we're not able to get an erection, that could be an early indicator that we have some type of malfunction in our heart or some type of heart illness. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, it's all about cardiovascular health, right? So in your 20s, every morning you wake up and you have morning wood. Right. But sometime in your 30s or your 40s or your 50s, if you're lucky, or your 60s, that morning wood goes away. Right. And that's a problem with circulation. You're not generating enough blood pressure in your penis in order to maintain a rigid erection. Right. And so from the time you lose nighttime or morning erections, not nighttime, but morning erections, to the time you develop erectile dysfunction is about 10 years. And from the time you develop erectile dysfunction till the time that many men develop cardiovascular disease is another 10 years, right? Because the arteries to the penis are on the periphery and they're 1 or 2 millimeters in size. The arteries to the heart are central and they're 3 to 4 millimeters in size. But remember, pi r squared, right? So it's a quarter of the cross-sectional area. So you're going to block the arteries to the penis about 10 years before you block the arteries to the heart.
Wow.
And so I get guys come in and go ahead.
No. Yeah, I was so like ED is a symptom of potential heart disease later on, and I'm just. Or does it always work that way? Or I guess
ED is for the most part the same problem as cardiovascular disease. It's just a different organ. Right? I mean, there's neurogenic erectile dysfunction that maybe 5 or 10% of people have. So if you have strokes or you have multiple sclerosis or if you have prostate cancer surgery, there's endocrine. So, if your testosterone is like 0, you may have erectile dysfunction or psychogenic. So, if you're afraid of women or afraid of intimacy, you can have those kind of issues. But 85, 90% is vasculogenic. But, it's different because, say you're at work and your dad's having heart issues and you tell everyone at work, hey guys, I need to take my father to cardiologist. He's having some heart issues. Everyone's like, oh, that's so nice. You're like, a really good son taking your dad to the cardiologist. But then say a week later, you're like, hey guys, I got to take my dad to the urologist. He's having erectile dysfunction.
Different conversation.
It's a different, but it's the same pathology, right? It's the same blood vessels going to an end organ, right? It's just, we just treat it differently, but it's the same. And it precedes serious heart disease by about 10 years. And the loss of nighttime erection precedes erectile dysfunction by about 10 years. And it precedes cardiovascular disease by about 20 years. So, you have these internal warning systems that are telling you that something's not working. But, a lot of guys are like, well, whatever, I'll just pop a blue pill and and we're fine. To connect with a patient and let the patient know, there's something going on that is going to lead to bigger problems later on if you don't deal with it. And that's why I wrote the book. And that's why when I see my patients for erectile dysfunction, it's not a rubber stamp, here's a bunch of pills. It's, we need to have a conversation about your overall health. I can, in 15 seconds, I can give you advice that will get you ahead of, in terms of health, of 95% of men.
What would that be?
Oh, right. Okay.
15 seconds. You're on the clock. You're on the clock.
All right. Don't drink. Don't smoke. Don't do drugs. Don't eat too much. Exercise every day. Yep. Watch your cholesterol. Stretch every day. Drink enough water. Get enough sleep. Do some mindfulness practice. Do some yoga. And be nice to other people.
There you go.
It's 15 seconds.
Hey, listen to that, everyone. That 15 seconds is going to save your life, or could.
And those all are, they're simple, but they're complicated.
Sure.
right? Because we live in a complicated world, and there are complicated relationship dynamics, and everyone needs, like when I get stressed, I go and I open up a pint of Ben & Jerry's ice cream and I finish it off in a night, right? And that's just what I do. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't have a bunch of other bad habits, but that's what I do. And it would be better if I could psychologically process it or whatever. But so we all have our issues. But as a general rule, those 10 or 12 things that I just rattled off should be relatively simple to do. And if you do them, you'll be healthy.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, you see so many patients, and this is what you just described. It should be the baseline of everyone's health. But we seem to be in a world or in this country where so many, the comorbidity rate in this country is approaching 50% of the overall population. Why is it so difficult? Or what do you hear from all these different men that you see and all these different patients that you see on a regular basis? Why they aren't doing these things? What is typically the excuses, I guess, or the responsibilities that might get in the way from them just attaining a simple baseline of health that just leads to other healthier decisions, healthier thinking, healthier ways of being in the world, if you would. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I could go through most of the things I talked about, but, for example, alcohol. We're all socialized to believe that alcohol is something great. It's like when you're young, you go out with your guys and drink beer. When you're in your 30s or 40s, you have some wine with your wife. And, when you're older, you're out with your buddies, drink bourbon. But no alcohol is good for you. Yeah. Alcohol is a depressant, right? That's the class of drug that it's in. You're drinking something that will make you depressed, okay? And it disinhibits you, which is why a lot of people drink alcohol. But think about, for most people, most of the stupid stuff we've done in our life, we've done under the influence of alcohol.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I was talking to a patient one time and I said that to him, and tears started coming out of his eyes. And then he was this light-skinned black guy, and I looked at him and he had this giant scar along the side of his face that I didn't see till that tear kind of dimpled into the scar. And, sure enough, he got drunk, got into a bar fight, and, it ruined 5 years of his life. And then the other thing is that alcohol is empty calories. Yeah. So they're calories without any nutritional benefit.
Right.
So they make people fat.
Right. And it can.
So I mean, you watch the end of Animal House and Dean Wormers and, giving advice. Drunk, fat, and stupid is no way to go through life.
Yeah.
Right.
And what does it do to our sleep too? I know it wrecks our sleep cycles, which is just compounding the effects.
I mean, there's a great chapter in the book on sleep. Sleep is I'm learning more and more about sleep over the years. First of all, our testosterone levels as a society are 30% lower than they were 50 years ago. Right? And part of it is because we don't sleep well. Because if you look at testosterone levels, you get them checked in the morning because they're highest in the morning. As the day goes on, they drop till about 3 o'clock in the afternoon when you need a siesta. They stay low until, guess what? You go back to sleep. When you go back to sleep, you start making testosterone again, and testosterone goes up until 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning when it's highest. So it's just like my electric car, right? If I only charge the car 4 hours a day, I'm not going to get the performance I want to get out of the car. I'm only going to have a battery that's half charged.
Right.
If I charge the battery for 8 hours, guess what? I can drive it wherever I want to drive it. So, sleep is important for that. Sleep is important for building muscle. If you're putting 2 hours in at the gym, but you're only sleeping 2-3 hours a night, guess what? You're not going to build muscle. Muscle gets built in the bedroom. It doesn't get built in the gym.
Gets broken down.
Sleep is sleep is where you process the psychology and what happens during the day. So if you don't get sleep, psychologically you'll be messed up. So many important things happen during sleep that a lot of the things that we do to kind of be productive during the day, if you don't get enough sleep, you're not going to get the benefit. Eating, our foods are way, way too high in calories. The caloric content, I have a big window in my office that looks out onto a field and trees. And I watch the squirrels run up and down the trees every day. They burn so many calories going up and down trees, knocking down nuts, digging a hole in the ground to put the nut in, to save it for winter, to get 20 calories or 30 calories. I want 2,000 calories. I get on my cell phone, I call up Grubhub, and I have a 2,000-pound burrito, 2,000-calorie burrito delivered to my office in 15 minutes, right? That doesn't take any calories.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not burning calories to get calories. So it's easy to get fat.
Right. Very easy.
And what does that fat do to our, coming back to heart disease, coming back to mental health? We've had Dr. Uma Naidu on the show, and she talks all about how what we eat affects our mental health, the lack of vitamins and minerals in the standard American diet, the SAD, the SAD. And she talks about the lack of omega-3 fatty acids and how important those are for our mental health, but we're lacking them. And then, yes, Will and I, we have a business partner, Dr. Teresa Larson. She's a Marine veteran turned doctor of physical therapy, and she preaches how much movement we need in the day. And it's not just going to the gym. It's not just going and running your 5K in the morning. If you go and run your 5K, 10K in the morning, and then you sit all day long, that 5K is not doing you any good, right? You're wrecking your body, you're wrecking your mind by not moving around and not taking care of yourself.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So I mean, there are so many basically simple things, but for a variety of reasons we don't do them. I mean, we work a lot. We commute to work a lot, and so maybe there's not the time during the day or at the end of the day to exercise, or the energy to exercise.
Or the energy. That's right, the energy.
Well, what would be your prescription for steps to just kind of avoiding some major health problems? Like you kind of alluded to it, but how many, how often should we be moving throughout the day? Like how much water should we be drinking throughout the day? How much sleep should we get every night?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a sleep expert, but the experts say 6 to 8 hours.
Yeah.
I'm not an exercise expert, but I developed what's called the ABC exercise routine. I like to keep things simple. So, I take care of the 0 to 99% guys, and then I take care of the top 1% guys. So I have tons of stuff for the top 1% guys at peptides and high technology and all that kind of stuff. But, most of the people out there are the 0 to 99% guys that need the basic stuff. So I developed the ABC. So A is for ambulate. So walk, run, Stairmaster, elliptical, do something on your feet and get your heart rate up to 75% of heart rate max. So you take 220, you subtract your age, and then multiply that by 3/4, and you get your, what your heart rate should be. So I'm 56 and my heart rate should be 125 when I exercise. And I try to get my heart rate up to 125 when I exercise, because I have a lot of patients that say, well, I walk with my wife every night. Well, do you sweat?
Yeah.
No, not really. What's your heart rate? I don't know. My Apple Watch says I'm doing steps and my heart rate's 90. That's not exercise. That's leisure. Okay. When you exercise, you got to sweat and you got to get your heart rate up. And then B is for bike. And when you're on a stationary bike, you should be doing what's called high intensity interval training or HIIT training. Yeah. So I do a lot of VO2 max testing in my office, and VO2 max is basically looking at your aerobic threshold. And your VO2 max or aerobic threshold is really one of the best indicators, probably the single best indicator of your cardiovascular health, your longevity, and how things are working for you, because it combines muscles, it combines the lungs, it combines the heart, and it combines the blood vessels. When you combine all those things, you get basically a number, which is your aerobic threshold, which is how intensely you can exercise without going into oxygen debt. And, just to show how important it is, the guy that won the Tour de France, Vingegaard, who just blew everyone away on the time trials up these massive mountains, had the second highest VO2 max ever tested, 97. Wow. Right. I'm 56. I have a pretty good VO2 max for someone my age, which was, I think, 45. So, I mean, his VO2 max is more than double mine.
Wow.
And so that's B is biking. And you want to do high intensity interval training, which is getting your heart rate up to like 90-95% of max. And then C is circuit training. And I have a body composition scan in my office that looks at arms, core, and legs. And so I can tell someone, listen, you never have to do another bicep or tricep curl ever. You need to do squats, you need to do leg lifts, or you need to do abs. That's what most people do, especially as they age. I tell people, you want to be a T-Rex. Like get those little arms,
tiny arms,
and big legs.
T-Rex hates push-ups.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You want to be a T-Rex because your legs are what's going to carry you upstairs. Your legs are going to be what you need to prevent falls, to go on vacation, to play with the grandkids. You're not going to, if you're sitting in the gym just pumping biceps, life doesn't look too good for you when you're in your 60s or 70s or 80s.
Yeah, I see it with my father. He's 84, and he's like never really put any work into his legs, any work into his butt, and it's had a tremendous effect on his back. And he even walks like hunched over, and like everything is down, and he's just like is always complaining about his back. And I'm like, I don't know if it's probably too late at 84 now, but I'm like, if it's just a little bit, preventative maintenance, as you age and as you live, it just makes such a big difference.
So there's an amazing technology that I work with a company because I really just love the technology called the M-Sculpt machine. It uses high intensity focused electromagnetic waves to contract muscle. So like there are people that have TENS units or like these full body suits, but that's a direct current. This is an alternating electromagnetic field. So it sets the depth of penetration of the electromagnetic field much, much deeper. And so you can get incredible contraction of muscles. And what your dad needs to prevent back problems is core strength, abs, glutes, and posterior chain. And when you do that, you use that posterior chain to support the weight of your torso and your head. And if you can't support the weight of your torso and your head with your muscles, then guess what? You're going to do it with your spine. And as you age, the discs, which are like little jelly donuts that sit between the vertebrae, start to desiccate, right? Start to dry out. The jelly comes out of the jelly donuts, and the spine collapses.
Right.
And that's because you're not supporting your spine with your muscles. You're supporting it with your, and I see a lot of police officers as patients. Mm-hmm. And a lot of police officers have these issues. I I'm becoming almost a specialty of taking care of first responders, and because they have very unique problems. These guys are wearing a lot of equipment and belts, and it puts a lot of stress and strain on their back and their joints. And I teach people how to stand. But your dad, it's not super cheap, but M-Sculpt and testosterone. How old's your dad?
He's 84.
Has he ever had his testosterone level checked?
No, absolutely no.
That's the sad thing is that testosterone is like magic.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, it's magic for men.
Yeah, it certainly is.
And the problem is like the conventional medical wisdom is like, well, as long as it's within 250 to 1,000, you're fine. But can I curse on the show?
Yes,
absolutely.
That's bullshit. Right? It's total bullshit.
Yeah.
Right? Guys feel good when their testosterone is between 1,000 and 1,400. Right? When did you feel good? When you were 20. What was your testosterone when you were 20? It was 1,000. When you're 50 or 60, now it's 400. Or 350, 500 if you're lucky, right? You feel lousy. I had a patient the other day. He came in. His friend had been on testosterone. His friend was feeling great. His testosterone was 500, and he's like, well, I'm really interested. I said, great. He's like, my primary care wouldn't put me on testosterone. They said it was fine. I said, well, let me give you a testosterone shot. Let's see how you do. He came in the next day. He's like, man, I got home. I was like, fuck, I got to mow the lawn.
Yeah.
He's like, I haven't wanted to mow the lawn in 5 years.
Yeah. Right. Wow.
They just had like incredible energy. That's, it's not a medication. It's a hormone. We know exactly what it does.
Right.
Well,
what do you do to, as we age, I mean, we start to decline in our testosterone over time. So like, how can you naturally keep it, at a certain level, or what would be a good level for a man in his 50s or 60s or something like that to continually live like a healthy and vibrant life? Or do you go the exogenous route and introduce testosterone to the system on a regular basis? Or do we do both, or what's the deal?
I'll try to give you a short answer to a really complicated question. So,
thank you.
5 to 800 is a good level.
Okay.
Under 500, then I start to look for clinical signs of low testosterone. So low energy, low motivation, poor sleep, loss of muscle, gaining fat, low libido, poor athletic performance. And if a guy has a fair number of those things and his testosterone is relatively low, then we start talking about testosterone. So you can offer them a supplement, right? So I have a supplement called Support, which has DIM, which blocks the conversion of testosterone to estrogen. It's got DHEA, which is a testosterone precursor. It's got Tongkat Ali, which boosts free testosterone levels. It's got ashwagandha, which boosts testosterone. But even a supplement like Support, it's only going to boost testosterone about 15%. And that's in guys with low starting DHEA, right? If that's not going to do enough for you, then you can do, especially if you're a young guy, right? Because I see so many guys that mess themselves up in a really, really big way because they don't know what the hell they're doing, right? So a lot of these guys that go to the gym bros give them like testosterone, they give them DHT derivatives and all sorts of stuff, and they mess people up. I have so many guys that come in with infertility or need to be on lifelong testosterone, or they mess up their liver, or they get blood clots because their hematocrits are too high. If you don't know what you're doing, you can do damage. You can do serious damage to yourself, to your reproductive potential, to your testicles, right? So find someone that actually knows what they're doing. And it's not, Big Mike at the gym. I go to my YouTube channel, buy my book.
There you go.
Go to my website. I have like 5 ebooks on testosterone that I wrote that are free. Learn this stuff before you just take a needle from some random guy at the gym and jab it into your arm. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, that's what happens.
Yeah,
right? Even smart guys. I have patients, like tons of patients that are police officers, firemen, SWAT guys, and that's what they do.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
The information is out there. So before you do that, so you can be on a supplement. There's something called clomiphene or N-clomiphene. They're two different related molecules. So if you're young and your testosterone's low and you want to boost it, you can go on N-clomiphene, which is a selective estrogen receptor modulator. Right? So there's a way to boost your testosterone safely without affecting fertility, and you can do it that way. Or if your testicles aren't capable of cranking out that much testosterone, then you can go on testosterone replacement therapy. You can either do shots or you can do pellets. And that can safely get your testosterone levels up to between 1,000 and 1,400. But I put all my patients on Clomid to prevent testicular shrinkage, and I put all my patients on anastrozole to prevent the conversion of testosterone to estrogen, right? Because you don't want that estrogen level building up too high, because all of a sudden you're buying Celine Dion tickets. Right?
I like Celine Dion.
or Taylor Swift, right?
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Tickets. Yeah, but those tickets are like $5,000 each.
Exactly. I can't afford to go see Taylor Swift.
Yeah, so you don't want to build up the estrogen.
Right. Yeah.
Well, let's talking about other ways to continue to build maybe testosterone and keep the estrogen levels down. In your book, you have something about creating a masculine space, kind of about basically having a man cave.
Isn't that a cool chapter?
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about making life fun, and how Will and I have done an episode on the importance of play, the importance of having fun, the importance of hanging out with, your dudes, your bros, and how what that does for you. Can you touch a little bit about that?
Yeah. I'm really lousy about that, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
I have 4 kids. I have a wife. I have 3 companies. I work too hard. My free time, I try to keep in shape, and I try to spend time with my family. And so,
what is your testosterone level, Doc? What's
actually, my
if you will.
testosterone levels, it's between 700 and 800.
Okay, you're in the range.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay.
So, and part of that is, right, think about it this way. Like, people say, well, why are testosterone levels lower than they were 50 years ago? Right? Think about it this way. Like, if you're a caveman and you're out there killing buffalo on the plains, you need a really high testosterone because buffalo don't like being killed. Right? If you're a farmer, farmers, aren't killing buffalo, but they're doing hard work. So their testosterone is high, but it's not quite as high as a farmer. If you're just sitting behind a desk, on a computer, your brain is smart. Your brain's like, well, we're not being attacked by buffalo, and I don't have to wake up in the morning to milk the cows and to till the fields. So I don't need that much testosterone. So let's use that energy to do other stuff, maybe to boost brain function in another way. And so that's why guys don't need as much testosterone now as they did back in the day, but that also has implications. Like if you ever see, I remember I was in Africa, right? And there was a zebra with his zebra mate. And there were other male zebras that were trying to mate with his female zebra. And I watched them fight for 5 hours.
Wow.
This one male zebra fought off like 4 or 5 other male zebras for 4 or 5 hours.
Yep.
You need a boatload of testosterone to do that. These days, you go on Tinder and, you meet someone later that evening, you don't need to fight off guys for 5 hours. So that's why our testosterone levels aren't what they used to be.
But now, they still need to be.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to have a good life and raise girls around and stuff like that. And so, I try to work out almost every day, and I try to eat right, and I try to get enough sleep, and I try to do a lot of the things that I know that will boost testosterone, not just boost testosterone, but, keep me healthy.
Sure.
So I think that's part of the reason, and some of it's genetic too, but, that's part of the reason that my testosterone levels are elevated.
Well, is it helpful to have that man space and be around other men and do hard work like you're talking about, and how often is, because that man, the man space you mentioned, it's like kind of diving in there a little bit. Does that help us to just, not necessarily testosterone, but maybe it does help to elevate our testosterone, but just kind of keep us in some sort of connection to our masculinity, if you will? Yeah, absolutely.
Of course. And, if you look at animal populations, the men, the unmarried or unpartnered animals, guys are all hanging out with each other, and they're jousting with each other and play fighting and sometimes real fighting. And that, that keeps them sharp. That keeps their testosterone up. That keeps them so that when they do have a chance to mate. And so I think that's an important part of it. And also another really important part is relaxation. Or de-stressing, right? Because, I see guys all the time that come in with erectile issues or other issues because they are overstressed. And when you say overstressed, you mean that your adrenaline levels are high and your cortisol levels are high. And so when your adrenaline and cortisol levels are high, you shunt blood, because it's all about circulation, away from certain important areas. So like when you're in a stress fight or flight mode, you need blood in your muscles, in your eye, in certain parts of your brain, in your heart, and it doesn't go to your intestines. So guess what? You start getting stomach pains, intestinal pains, right? How come? Because you're not getting enough blood flow to the intestines. Maybe you're getting some kidney issues. Your kidneys aren't working as well as they should, and they're not eliminating waste products from your body the way that they should. How come? Because your kidneys, which at any given time, 20% of your blood flow should be in your kidneys, but now they're getting 10% of the blood flow, right? Because the purpose of the kidney is basically to clean the blood, to filter out the impurities, to make sure that you're making enough urine to keep your blood pressure intact, to keep your electrolytes from getting too high or too low so that you don't have arrhythmias, et cetera, et cetera. And blood flow goes to your penis, right? But if your blood flow is being shunted to muscles and the heart, it's not going to the penis, so you get erectile dysfunction. right? So it's all about these decisions that your body is making for you that you really have no understanding or input into, unless you understand, like, I need to be more mindful. I need to slow down. I need to breathe. I need to, get into a space that's more relaxing. Because when I'm in a space that's more relaxing, then blood flow can go to other places like the intestines, like the kidneys, like, creative parts of the brain. If you're just looking to run away from a bear, your creativity is stunted, because creativity takes a lot of blood flow in the brain, and you're not getting blood flow to the penis. So guess what? You're not getting good erections.
Let's unpack the stress there that you mentioned, like, hey, slowing down, taking some time for yourself. Again, in the book, you address mental health, and again, here we are, men talking mindfulness. What would you say about how to address men's mental health needs compared to women's? Because, again, coming back to how we talked about at the beginning, when we were 20 years old and young and full of everything else, we don't really, we kind of envision ourselves as superheroes, supermen, and nothing's ever going to hurt us. Hey, that's only going to happen to somebody else. It's only going to happen to somebody else. How can we address men's mental health in a way that will resonate with men so that they feel they can go and seek support?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really amazing question. I think, so part of it is analytics, right? Guys, as far, in terms of a generalization, I motivate many of my patients with numbers, with analytics, right? So 100 years ago, men lived 1 year less than women. Now men live 5 years less than women.
Right.
Right. So some bad stuff happened in the last 100 years where guys lost about 4 years of their life expectancy relative to women. And then if you look at the longevity of middle-aged men in the United States, it's actually declining. And it was declining before COVID. And the reason it was declining is because of alcoholism, opioid abuse, and suicide, right? Yes. Diseases of despair, right? So that's really bad. And then if you combine that with men are half as likely to see their primary care physicians as women are, right? That's really like messed up.
Right.
Right. Here are the people that should be able to help you, but you're not visiting them. But then add on top of that, our healthcare system in this country is incredibly broken and incredibly messed up.
Yeah.
Right. And so don't go to the doctor expecting the doctor to take out a magic wand and make you better. Right. So first of all, it's on the website, the 21stcenturyman.com website, and also in the book on how to prepare for your doctor's visit. Right. So on average, when they did a study, they looked at 100 million visits to doctors in the United States. And you have 16 minutes and 14 seconds in that visit. 100 million visits, that's a big sample population. So they're not off by much.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And, if you've been to the doctor lately, and I can almost guarantee you that it's less than 16 minutes now, because I hear back from my patients, and even doctors that I know that are really good doctors, I hear back from my patients that, this doctor only spent 5 minutes with me. This doctor only spent 7 minutes with me. Yeah. So I know if Dr. Z and Dr. X are only spending 5 or 7 minutes with you, I can't imagine what other doctors are doing. And so you have to actually prepare to go to the doctor. Right? I tell my patient, write down your health history. What medications you're on, what surgeries have you had, what medical problems do you have, what your family history is, right? Any labs you've had. Print them out, have them ready. Any imaging studies that you've had or other diagnostic tests, print them out, have them ready. Okay. Then come in with a history of present illness, right? If you're coming in for back pain, write down, my back pain started 3 weeks ago. It's just like the back pain I had 3 years ago when I was playing basketball, and I went and I had an MRI at that time and I slipped a disc, and now it feels the same, and I took a leave and I went to a chiropractor. Write all that stuff down, and then write down a list of 10 questions. And then when you get to the doctor, hand that information to the doctor. That doctor's going to look at it like, if you handed it to me, I'd have a big smile on my face. I would get on my dictaphone. I would dictate the whole thing. It'd take me about 3 minutes. And guess what? You got 13 minutes and 14 seconds for me to really examine you and formulate a plan for you and discuss the plan, so on and so forth. But if you come in there and the doctor goes, well, what's wrong? And you're like, I sort of have some back pain. And then we spend the other half of the visit talking about the 49ers and the weather. You're going to walk out of there saying, I didn't get...
Just wasted my time.
Yeah, I just wasted my time. The doctor just wasted my time. No, you wasted your time. And when I go see my lawyer is $750 an hour. Right? It is. It's like $1 a minute. So 5 minutes is like a sandwich.
Right? You have it broken down.
If I'm talking to my lawyer about the 49ers for 5 minutes, I just lost the sandwich. I got to go home and eat peanut butter and jelly because I can't go to Subway. Right? You got to take the same attitude when you go see the doctor. You want to, doctors are there, but I've known a lot of doctors in my life, and for the most part, they're good people and they want to help you. But the system is really messed up.
Yeah. And it's overburdened too, the system. There's so many people with chronic illnesses, and it's like, no wonder why there's no time to see patients, because there's so many, because people aren't, honestly, what I see is, and what I hear often is, people just not taking care of themselves and just going into like a deep decline, and just like, and then they're so far deep in this hole that it's just like, oh, now I need to fix myself because whatever, I have ED, or, I'm stressed out, or I just had my first heart attack.
Or, they just want a pill.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Like these new GLP-1 inhibitors, like Ozempic, Wegovy, they are miraculous, incredible drugs. But they won't fix the fact that you got to exercise. And when you stop taking these $1,000 a month pills or shots, you got to eat better. I mean, I had a patient the other day, right? He lost 25 pounds on Ozempic, but he lost 7 or 8 pounds of muscle. Yeah. That's a big deal. I tell all my patients that are on those medications, you got to get into the gym. You got to check your testosterone level. You got to make sure your testosterone level is okay. Because if you're 70 years old and you're in the gym for an hour a day and your testosterone level is 250, guess what? You won't build any muscle. Yeah. You could spend 5 hours in the gym. You're not going to build any muscle. You need testosterone to build muscle. It's just a fact. So, you have to make sure that you have all your little ducks in a row, and don't expect there to be a magic. I had a patient a couple months ago. He flew out from Florida to see me. I'd seen me on some podcast or something like that. He's like, oh, you're the guy, right? And he's like, you're the guy, right?
I love it. No, you're the guy. I'm going to say you're the fucking guy too.
He's like,
that's awesome.
He's like, I need to know about my peptides. He's like, I'm on BP 157 and alpha 1 antitrypsin and PT 141. And I looked at the guy. I'm like, and I looked at his body composition. I'm like, dude, you got to lose 50 pounds. He's like, you're just barking up the wrong tree if you want to keep taking peptides. Stop eating so much and exercise more. When your percentage of body fat is 15% and you got 90 pounds of muscle, then you can start worrying about peptides.
Right.
But until then, don't waste your time flying out to see me from Florida. Eat better.
Maybe you just wanted to come out to California too.
Yeah, I mean, it could be.
Well, I was going to say something coming back to the men's reticence to go and seek mental health or medical support even. I'll be honest, even as a health and wellness practitioner, I focus a lot on health and wellness, but I personally haven't been to my primary care manager in probably a year plus. And when I do go, there's the questions like, how are you feeling? Hey, I'm good. Like, all I want to do is get out of there. Like, I feel uncomfortable. I feel like I'm wasting my time. I feel like I'm wasting their time. I could be doing something else. But in actuality, by taking some time to talk to the doctor about what I'm experiencing, my health history, X, Y, and Z, by taking that time, I actually am probably going to save myself some time in the long run, right? I'm going to have more longevity because I might be able to get some help with whatever it is I'm experiencing. So we have to change the way that we look at doctor's visits, like take the ego out of the equation, and also take out the fact that you think that you're wasting time there. You're not. You're taking
write
care of
it
yourself,
down.
right? Write it down.
Write it down.
Right.
And just hand the guy a piece of paper. If you don't want to say like, I'm feeling really sad or depressed, or, like I think I'm too fat, I need to be on a diet, or I don't know how to exercise, or, like everyone in my family has diabetes. I'm scared that I might have diabetes, but I don't want to test it.
Yeah.
Right? Write it down and just hand it to like in seventh grade when you wrote down like, I like you, and you handed it to like.
We're definitely aging ourselves now, writing notes instead of text messages.
Yeah. Like, I think you're cute.
Right. To do that.
But, back to your point about the mental health, like I was watching Tim Ferriss' podcast, and he's very open about his mental health issues. And I was like, oh my God, that's really cool. And then I was watching a Huberman podcast, and Huberman's very open about like, I see a therapist every week. Like there's no shame. I've seen therapists, but there's no shame in seeing therapists. I see so many first responders, a lot of police officers these days did tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they have PTSD and they have all sorts of issues. Like, help. Like there's no shame in getting help. There really isn't.
I think it's a sign of strength.
Everyone's doing it.
Yeah. Right. Well, it's something that it's a current that we fight against all the time on the show. It's just like we had a whole episode just asking for help. Like, what does it look like to get help? How do you even ask for help? Like, how do you? These toxic masculinity they're referred to as, ways of being are literally toxic to the man themselves, and also to everyone around them as well. Because if they're not healthy, then they're probably cranky or grumpy and not performing their best and not satisfying their partner like maybe they should be, in order to improve their relationship. And it's just to get help. Well, how about this, Doc? What about so somebody that hasn't seen a doctor in a long time, and they're going in, they're relatively healthy. Like, what would you suggest that they kind of ask the doctor for, like a blood scan, or or what?
Oh yeah, I'm very proactive. So although I don't see the doctor all that often, but I kind of have a
you look in the mirror every day, man.
I am a doctor, right? And I do my body composition scan every 3 months, and I get a full panel of blood labs every year, including liver, kidney, thyroid, vitamin D, B12, testosterone, free testosterone, estrogen, hematocrit, white blood cells, platelets. So, it's these days it's relatively inexpensive to get a full blood screening. And then I get a full body CT scan about every 5 or 6 years, because, bad shit can happen. And we have the technology these days to be proactive about it. So, those are good, sort of solid, regular things to get. If you get a lot of that stuff, the problem is you go to the doctor, right? And then the doctor's like, oh, well, let's get a bunch of tests. And then you got to go back to the doctor, and then maybe go back to the doctor one more time, right? And these days, who doesn't wait an hour to see the doctor? Right. So then it's like, who has 3 half days to take off to go see a doctor? And everything's probably going to be okay, right?
Right.
So what I do is I get all my stuff beforehand. I get all my labs, I got all my imaging studies, I got everything that I need beforehand. So I show up to the doctor and I have like all the information that the doctor needs to basically tell me like, all right, everything's cool, or
Right.
you got this problem, you got that problem, you got the other problem. But that's just me because I'm an efficiency freak.
Me too.
Like I like if I waste a minute, it's like offensive to me.
That's a fifth of a sandwich.
Exactly. That's like, chips.
Well, hey, Dr. Brandeis, I know we're coming short on time here, and we'd like to wrap the show up with another grounding practice. But before we do that, what's the best way for our listeners, our audience, to find you, and what's a project that you would like to share on the show? I mean, I know we've got the 21st Century Man right here, and you mentioned the 21stcenturyman.com. Definitely want to push our audience there, but anything else that you would like to share with the audience before we wrap it up?
Okay, the 21stcenturyman.com, all written in letters, lowercase letters, right? And that there's, even if you don't want to buy the book, there's you can read the introduction, you can read the first chapter, you can read that, you can listen to that whole thing I just talked about, how to get ready for your doctor's visit. There's actually a fair number of resources, just even on the website. I also have a pretty good YouTube channel where I do a lot of sexual medicine. I do a lot of testosterone, men's health type stuff. And then I have a supplement company called Affirm Science, AFFIRM science.com.
Great.
And we have a nitric oxide boosting supplement that's best in class. We have a testosterone boosting supplement called Support. We have a supplement for premature ejaculation, which is a problem that about a quarter of guys suffer from. And then I have a prostate supplement called Spunk. And then on top of that, I am the first scientific researcher to ever publish a study in a reviewed scientific journal on how you can increase the length, girth, and function of a healthy guy's penis.
There we go. We were gonna avoid that, but now we're like, oh man, now we have to talk about it.
I've always seen, I think every man has seen those commercials many, many, many times, and I'm like, is it like, so that this is something that can really happen, really happen for men, like girth and length, increased size?
Yeah. So if someone's interested, then go to p-long.com.
Of course.
And to be perfectly honest,
I thought I was being punked there with that website.
I know, right?
P-long.
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 Sounds like a hip hop name. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Definitely going to check that out.
I could care less how long guys' penises are, to be perfectly honest. But I would see guys come into my office because I'm a surgeon and a urologist and a sexual health specialist, and they would get fillers or fat or have surgeries, and it would really mess up their penis and cause big problems. And I said, there's got to be a better way. And, I have a background in clinical research. I did research at American Red Cross. I've done research at Harvard Medical School, sponsored by Howard Hughes Medical Institute. I've done research at UCLA. So I said, well, let me see if I can whip up a study to see if we can improve the length, girth, and function of a healthy guy's penis. I got the study IRB approved. I got it listed by clinicaltrials.gov, which is the NIH website. I recruited 30 patients. I've presented now twice at the Sexual Medicine Society of North America. I published in Andrology, and we can grow a healthy guy's penis about an inch in length, about a half an inch in girth, and improve function using a combination of PRP. So PRP is platelet-rich plasma. So we take your own blood, we spin the blood down, we isolate the platelets, and then re-inject them into the penis. And I developed an ultrasound-guided technique to do that, which really isn't that uncomfortable, believe it or not. And that, combined with my Affirm nitric oxide boosting supplement and a traction device to help improve length and a suction device to help improve girth, over a period of 6 months, you can naturally increase the length, girth, and function of a healthy guy's penis.
Damn. And it stays up.
And I'm not telling guys you need a bigger penis, right? What I'm telling you is,
but so many of us believe that we do.
Yeah. And if you look at studies or surveys, 50% of guys wish that they had a bigger penis, and 50% of men are lying.
I love it.
Right. But then Yeah, I know. Isn't it fun talking about penises all day?
Hell yeah, all day. All day.
We laugh so much in my office.
Oh, I'm sure.
I bet you do.
But, all kidding aside, if it's something that you're interested in and you're going to be motivated to do something, do something that's safe.
Yeah.
Do something that works to improve both length and girth and function. Right there. So that I was just at the Sexual Medicine Society meeting, and there's something called fallow-fill, which is injecting filler hyaluronic acid into the penis to create girth. Right. So the head of the penis still stays small, but you get girth. Right. So you get what I call a pig in a blanket penis. Right.
There you go.
But it's $10,000 for the initial injection, and then like $2,500 a year.
Jeez.
Every year after that
For maintenance.
And if you don't do that, you get this kind of lumpy, bumpy penis, right?
Oh boy!
With P-long
included.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We're
talking about the penis.
On that note.
So anyway, that's another one of my projects.
Yeah.
Awesome.
If you're interested in that kind of stuff, you can go on p-long.com.
All right. Well, we'll make sure all those links are in the comments.
My medical practice website is brandeismd.com. So, I'm in Northern California. I do have people that fly in from different places to see me. But if you don't want to fly in to see me, you can read my book and go to my YouTube channel. You can get free ebooks off my website. Awesome. I really enjoy teaching men how to take better care of ourselves because we don't. It's sad, but we don't.
Yeah, and we enjoy broadcasting that information. So we might have to have you back or something. Thank you so much for dropping in today and all in this incredible book.
I knew that you would be interested in P-long and you'd want me back.
We want to do a separate episode just on that.
I see that for the end, right? Kind of like a teaser, like, we got to get this guy back.
Well, maybe not just for the P-long part.
No, I want him for the mindfulness stuff.
All right. Yes. Exactly.
Sure.
Exactly.
We'll have to change the name of the show, Men Talking Penises.
Talking penal
something. All right. Well, hey, Dr. Brandeis, great having you here. Thank you so much again for coming on and making this work. I know you're a busy guy and we're short on time. So, I'm going to turn it over to you to wrap it up with that closing practice, and then we'll say goodbye.
You are a little turned down, though, I can tell.
Exactly. My testosterone is spiking.
Yeah, there you go.
So,
that's why we need to do the grounding practice.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to ground. So we're just going to do a few breaths. This nice little parachute breath that I like. Just 3 of these is a great way just to, get you grounded, get out of that state of stress. Maybe it'll help you make better decisions about your health if you just do this. So let's exhale all the way out. Empty, empty, empty. Good. Let's take a nice swift inhale through the nose and a long exhale out the mouth. Exhale, exhale. Yeah, let's just do 2 more. In, deep breath. Easy out. Really control that long, easy exhale. One more time. In. Exhale, let it go. All right, good. And there we have it. Dr. Brandeis, thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
I'm grounded and relaxed and can start the rest of my day.
There you go. Well, we'll definitely have this. We'll have this out and we'll share it with you once it's out. It'll be out on video tomorrow and then on podcast next Monday. So thank you again, Dr. Brandeis, for joining us.
My pleasure.
All right,
you got it.
Everyone. Take care.
Thank you so much. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.